Hi, I'm Leslie Sweeney, and today we're going to have a quick look at the subject of atheism. We're going to ask, what is the story with atheism, and does it stand up to scrutiny? Does it make logical sense? So we'll look at a few things. Just whilst we're doing that, I'll just give you a little brain teaser as well, so you can have a think about this while we're chatting, and at the end we'll come back to it in more detail. Have a think about this question. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Have a think about it. We'll come back to it later, and we'll see if this helps us understand the issue anymore. So, with atheism, one of the key arguments is that God doesn't exist because I cannot see him. Is this really a reliable argument to prove that God doesn't exist? I cannot see it, therefore it doesn't exist. Does this make logical sense? To understand this, we need to look at dogs. Dogs are colourblind. They cannot see colour. If you had a civilization of intelligent dogs and they were to conduct a scientific experiment to assess whether colour exists, they, using perfectly valid scientific methodology, would conclude that colour does not exist because they cannot observe colour. So this uncovers a fundamental flaw in the philosophy of science, since the correct scientific procedure results in an incorrect conclusion. How reliable is it, therefore, to conclude that God doesn't exist because we can't see him? How can you be sure that we humans aren't just God blind? Another argument that is used for atheism is that if there is a God, then why does he permit evil? To understand the answer to this, we must understand that evil exists because God permits free will. Evil is perhaps more a result of human selfishness, the choice of someone to choose to do bad over good, maximising my own pleasure to the detriment of another's well-being. Where someone is evil to the extent that their actions are adversely affecting the world around them, when a person commits evil, they seem to move further from God's protection. Then God seems to permit a greater evil to befall that person. This is to prevent the extent of evil that that person can do. What about suffering? If there was a God, why would people suffer? This is another key argument used in atheism. Well, to look at this argument and the whether or not it's valid or not, we can look at the key figures that we have seen in the faith. Who are they and what have they said about suffering? Let's consider, for instance, Jesus, God made man. He himself suffered and died on a cross himself. This suggests that the assumption that suffering is somehow part of human life. What is the purpose of suffering then? It's not fully clear, other than understanding that life on earth is only a prelude to eternal life, a life that exists beyond space and time. a life where suffering is gone. Why it exists in the first place, we don't really know. But we do know that suffering is only temporary and that better is yet to come. So let's have a quick look at that philosophical question that we asked before. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Is there a satisfactory answer to this? Is there a logical answer that answers this question? Many people have philosophized over this for many times, for many years, and a scientific assessment of this based purely on logic doesn't seem to properly answer the question. Because if the egg came first, then how did it get there? There must have been a chicken to lay the egg and to hatch the egg. If the chicken came first, then how did it get there? There must have been an egg to produce the chicken. So a scientific answer based purely on logic and on that which we can only observe does not provide a satisfactory answer. So, to find the truth, we must look further afield. If we consider a theological response to this question, then we get closer to the actual truth. If asked what came first, chicken or egg, then most theologians would respond with which came first, whichever God put there first. This really answers the fundamental question that is on everyone's mind. How did the chicken and egg come into existence? And the only logical answer to this question is that there must have been a creator. Could this creator have been the infinite God that we are told about? So this leads us on to the question, is there any evidence that God exists? Well, apart from the testament of the prophets in almost every generation, there are some indicators that God may exist in many different places, in mathematics and physics and computing. Many theories are based on the concept of infinity. Infinity is something that we can't observe, but we know it exists because there are many formulas that rely on the concept of infinity, and the world doesn't fit together without this concept of infinity. So it's never been properly observed, yet many mathematical formulas can't function without infinity. We are told that God is infinite. He is everlasting. The Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Could this infinity be something that, whilst not observed in reality by science, is accepted as the truth? Could this concept of infinity point to an everlasting God? Just turning away now from philosophical questions and theological questions, I would like to offer a personal reflection at the moment. I'm an educated person. I've been to college. I have a degree in economics. I have other job-related degrees as well. And I'm a believer. I believe that God exists. I have no doubt. Why am I a believer? Is it because someone convinced me with arguments? No, it wasn't. It was because I observed God's power firsthand. I experienced God. There's several situations in my life that were turned around by what can only be miracles, God's hand at work, God's revelation, if you like. I'm not alone. There are many other people like me as well. Many people discount my testimony. They say, "Oh, that guy's mad. It's impossible. That couldn't possibly happen." But I know for a fact that what I experienced did happen, and I'll share some of those things with you just now. So, throughout my life, one of the things that I experienced was depression. And when I was experiencing depression, I tried many things to overcome this. I tried exercise. Exercise did well. The endorphins that I got from exercising overcame some of the negative feelings, but there was still a fundamental unhappiness in my spirit. So that didn't quite work. I visited a doctor. I did some therapy, and to some extent, yes, that did work. But still, it wasn't perfect. It didn't fully heal me. I tried various other, attempts to address this depression, and it was actually God that healed me. It was through prayer to God, and gradually He healed me. I put that down to the fact that the solutions that I was attempting to address my depression were physical solutions, but the problem that I had was a spiritual problem, and it was a spiritual solution that was the best solution to that problem. So for me, it worked. It also helped with other issues as well, addiction problems and so on. I've experienced God's healing. Many others have. If you want to understand a little bit more, speak to a believer near you and ask them why do they believe. Many of them would have experienced it as well. So perhaps you can ask them and have an open mind. So many people with scientific minds suggest that they are atheists. In other words, they are sure that God does not exist. But how can they be so sure? Is atheism not an unscientific viewpoint, since it rejects the hypothesis that God exists without any real sound scientific evidence? And based on this flimsy reason that it concludes that God cannot exist because He cannot be seen. So the question is, would a truly scientific viewpoint on faith not rather be a little bit more discerning, or at least open to the possibility that God might exist, open to the hypothesis that perhaps there is something out there that we just haven't experienced yet? This would rather be an agnostic point of view. So in other words, you don't say that God necessarily exists per se, but you're at least open to the possibility that He may exist. So, I hope you have found today's talk interesting. The whole purpose of this talk is not to discount anyone's beliefs, but more rather to look at those beliefs and to assess whether or not they are reliable, to question those beliefs. I hope that this stimulates some discussion. If after listening to these to this debate that you still choose to be atheistic, then fine. Great. Good. So be it. That's your choice. If you would like to stimulate further discussion, if you want to come back on any of those points, then please do leave a message. I'm interested to hear what your beliefs are. I'm interested to hear what you have to say in relation to any of the things that I have said there. So yeah, please have a think about it. Reassess your position. Think to yourself, what's the best way forward? And ask yourself, am I truly open-minded? Because true scientists are very open-minded. They're always open to new solutions and exploring new avenues. So I hope and I pray that this has stimulated something in you all, and I hope that we all come to find the truth. So good luck with everything, and I pray for that revelation, for that opening of eyes that perhaps some of us need to have. Good luck, and God bless. Bye-bye.